chief political analyst, Chuck Todd. Chuck, he who has been awake the longest shall get the first question.
Well, it's,
So let's talk about this. I mean, we were talking last night or 2 hours ago about this political realignment in this country. I mean, everything you thought you knew about politics is pretty much on its head this morning.
It is, I remember 4 years ago talking with a few people going, Donald Trump could put together a multi-ethnic working class coalition if he didn't alienate certain voting groups. Well, that part didn't matter. He's put together the multi-ethnic working class coalition, and it's a majority of the country. It's over 50%. And the Democrats allowed themselves, essentially, they accepted the party of elites mantra, they accepted the party of suburban America, and walked away from rural America, essentially, and didn't try to get that back. And when you start to look at it, and that seems to be culturally how they've lost this group of voters. It was one thing to lose working class whites. Now they're losing working class Hispanics. And, this keeps up, they'll lose working class African Americans.
It's so interesting because it's not about demographics, where Democrats always are talking about demographics. That's their identity politics. That's
play
like
this note.
Always,
it's a big
always,
mistake.
always. And now there's a different dividing line, and it has to do with
class.
Working educated, college educated, not college educated. That's the dividing line.
And every time we say not college educated, you know what that sounds like?
Yeah, it sure does.
Yeah. And that's part of It's part of this sort of disconnect between sort of elite institutions and this Trump coalition.
And the conversation that elites have been having with themselves.
Like right now.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
But just to say that is how it is in the exit polling, and that's how they phrase it, which is why the phrase comes
and this is an academic, but it's how it comes across.
Yeah.
And it's been weaponized. And it's been weaponized quite effectively. And I get it. I mean, you do what you're trying to explain and what somebody hears are two different.
Let me ask you something that Sam said that surprised me, and maybe everybody knew this, but I was sleeping and woke up. Biden outperformed Harris in women this year when he ran compared to when she's running right now. Biden outperformed her. We kept saying that we thought there was going to be this big gender gap, that women were going to come out in droves for her, but they came out more for him 4 years ago.
Well, look, I think this Biden election, and I've believed this for the last couple of years, that we've all sort of misinterpreted why Biden won. Biden won because of COVID. And I think there was a lot of people that ascribed a lot of other things to it. Oh, people were tired of Donald Trump, or I think some Democrats conflated January 6th, which happened after the election, right, with, and that somehow, and didn't fully appreciate that. But for COVID, Trump probably would have won re-election. They did like him on the economy. They did like what he was doing on the border. And I think ignoring those two things for as long as they did in the Biden administration, I think, put them in this hole.
Well, it's also interesting, too, because Biden ran kind of, first of all, as a transitional figure, so people weren't expecting that he necessarily would run for a second term, but also he had always been something of a centrist, but I mean, I don't think he governed that way right away. I mean, there was a sense that he was trying to do more than perhaps people had voted him into office to do.
Yeah, more than people were comfortable with here. And what you saw for Kamala Harris here was this, when she took the top of the ticket, was a tack back toward the center. I heard, not to get too in the weeds on Tom Suozzi in New York and the immigration position, but he successfully was able to win a special election by tacking to the center on an issue that Republicans had owned, and clearly based on some of the exit polls here still do, by taking a more sort of border security, border safety position that the Harris campaign then in many ways adopted, right, and used that same kind of messaging when she would talk about this issue that was, while fourth on the list of top issues, was still important to a big slice of the electorate.
Well, and big picture, more than 70% of the electorate feel as though the country's in the wrong track. And when Vice President Harris would get questions over and over again, how are you going to govern differently than President Biden? She said, I'm not going to be a continuation of the Biden presidency, but she rarely gave specific details. And so many voters, I think, were looking for some of those specifics to make their answer.
Our exit polls, which came, the very first one that came out, said that voters had told us their number one issue was the state of democracy. And we have talked about this a lot, and it's worth delving into. That is a phrase that means different things to different people. So for Democrats, state of democracy might mean, oh, it's January 6th, is Donald Trump going to be a dictator? For Republicans, it means my way of life is threatened. What my values are threatened. Both see an existential threat to their country and to the way that they live their lives.
Well, and when you look at that, what choice did we give voters? I always say that question, we gave them 5 choices. 4 of them were issues, and one is the state of the democracy. We told them, like, what was the most important? Foreign policy, immigration, economy, and abortion, and then state of democracy. And so what they're really, we don't have the right punch, okay? But it is some sort of, it is the way of life. It is this idea where the left believes Trump's un-American and the right believes the left's un-American, right? This whole socialism, you're trying to take the country and totally change it.
And these cultural issues. I mean, Trump ran this ad during every sporting event, talking about where Kamala Harris, a position that she took, transgender, paying for the reassignment surgeries for prison inmates, and they never answered that. And that ad ran on a loop.
It's the culture wars, and it was on display. It has been effective in past elections. It was effective here. One Democratic lawmaker said, we need to have a reckoning. We need to reorient and rethink how we are connecting with voters.
Chuck, the nap with your name on it, my friend.
I'm ready.
Thank you very much.
I think so.
All right.
With our name
I might have to pick football games for my friend, Mr. Kornheiser. But other than that, then I get to go to bed.
All right, Chuck, thank
See
you
you,
so
Chuck.
much.